After the slight misstep with Apocalypse, Fox seems to have found their feet in again with Deadpool and Logan, so let's see if they can keep that streak up. Spoiler warning ahead, this is going to be my uneducated opinion on the movie Deadpool 2. So Tim Miller doesn't return to the director's seat due to creative differences he had with Ryan Reynolds, and Ryan had been given a lot more creative control and casting approval within this movie. Tim wanted the sequel to be more stylized, whilst Ryan wanted to focus more on the comedy in which made the first Deadpool movie so successful with its R rating. So instead they bring in David Leitch to direct, and as this movie says, he is one of the culprits that was responsible for killing off John Wick's dog, and he ends up going on to direct the movie The Fall Guy, which I have done a video before and really enjoyed it, so I'd recommend going and watching that. With getting David on board, you get the incredibly dynamic action sequences that we all know and love with the John Wick franchise, and is the absolute highlight of this movie. Not saying that the action sequences in the first movie was bad in any way, but you can definitely notice a step up, and they get really creative with it from the get-go. In the intro, we get so many great moments, the camera tracking around with the choreography and the action being right on point. I loved the scene where we see the bad guy trying to run away in slow motion, whilst we see Deadpool just massacring everyone in the background completely at normal speed. So the story in this follows Wade Wilson trying to find a way out in the midst of his depressive state after losing the love of his life, Vanessa, right at the start of the movie, and then crosses paths with the cybernetic soldier of the future called Cable, who has the plan to go and kill a younger mutant called Russell, or he calls himself Firefist. I don't know too much about the character Cable from the comics other than me playing the Deadpool game that came out ages ago, which he had a pretty significant role in from what I remember, so I don't really know if this movie has a really good interpretation of that character. There was a pretty extensive search for the casting of Cable, to which Josh Brolin ultimately was cast for the role, and I think he does a really good job. I really like his non-bullshit attitude, and you gotta love the distinct voice that Josh Brolin has, and it goes really well with the character. And even the look of the cybernetic alterations that he has on his body is absolutely incredible. I couldn't tell if it was a practical or visual effects that they used. I mean, it could have been a mixture of the both to make the character look the way he does. Ryan Reynolds is still entertaining as the Merc with the Mouth, delivering some really funny moments and again some more serious ones when needed. However, I would say the more serious notes seem to be compromised a bit too much in certain areas. And yes, I do get that's the point of this character being quite self-deprecating, very self-aware, and, well, mourning throughout the entirety of this movie, but I feel the balance of the comedy doesn't really work as well as what we saw in the first movie. For example, during his own death right at the end of the movie, it's supposed to be this sad, somber moment filled with a couple jokes, but when they keep making that same joke where he's not actually dead yet, it's repeated a few too many times. Whilst we are talking of the comedy though, like the last movie, this did make me laugh a lot more than it didn't when it's throwing its jokes all over the place, but I would say that there's a few of them that don't land as often as they would like. There are a couple of pretty dated jokes, especially when it comes to referencing dubstep at one point in this movie, and probably because it's barely a thing anymore, well, at least to me, because I'm living in my own musical bubble. Is it me, or does there seem to be a lot more jokes which are essentially just references in this movie? They repeat a couple jokes from the previous one, like shooting someone after giving that big speech about 4 or 5 moments, superhero landings, the Winter Soldier arm, Thanos comments towards Cable. For me, it comes across as a little bit egregious at points, because those are the types of jokes that stand out for being, okay, you're just wanting us to clap in recognition. Deadpool cutting the bullet in half and then proceeding to get shot constantly by Cable is one of the callbacks to X-Men Origins Wolverine, and we all know how much we love that movie. And for me, it's one of the good references because the joke is subtle and it's not just resorting to Deadpool turning to the camera and then explaining the joke to us. It's a shame we don't get a lot more of Marina Baccarin, since her chemistry with Ryan was one of the best parts in the first movie, but I guess the character's death is what propels the plot forward, and they do use this moment to make the opening credits have a lot of humour, which I guess is good enough. I would understand if there is a lot of fans out there who are disappointed and didn't think it was worth cutting her character in service for some jokes. TJ Miller is still in this, and thankfully not for that long, and I think for me it really emphasizes how unfunny his character is when even Deadpool himself is acknowledging the fact that all his character does is say how something looks like something else in a very long-winded and over-the-top jokey way. The whole recruiting of the X-Force is another one of my favorite scenes of the movie, where you're introduced to everyone's new favorite characters: Bedlam, Domino, Shatterstar, Vanisher, Zeitgeist, and Peter. We all should never forget Peter. Zazie Beetz, I really enjoyed playing Domino. I really liked her laid-back attitude towards pretty much everything, because if you knew you had the superstitious powers of black cats and broken mirrors affecting everyone around you, you would also not be fazed by practically anything. And I really liked the way they portrayed luck being her power in this, even if the CGI may seem a bit noticeable. And, well, let's just speak about the visual effects for a moment. Even though they do show off the bigger budget they had for this movie with the big set pieces, the visual effects, I think, can be quite iffy. And yeah, they make the joke of there being two big CGI characters fighting at the end, but just because you acknowledge something, it doesn't mean you can excuse the visuals for looking like a video game, especially when that big final fight is meant to be really big and epic. For me, the best action scenes are the ones where it doesn't really involve a lot of CGI, or so that we know, and it more focuses on the good choreography and the practical effects. Speaking of big CGI characters, the Juggernaut is involved and is actually voiced by Ryan Reynolds himself, and I do quite like that his main theme is just holy shit balls. It's pretty nice to finally get a good adaptation of the Juggernaut compared to what we got in X-Men 3. I mean, let's be honest, that wasn't that big of a bar to try and leap over. And even in the scenes he's not really involved with, like the prison, I really like that they give him this intimidating presence when Russell goes to try and find him. Other characters that return to this include Stefan Kepasic as Colossus, Brianna Hildebrandt as Negasonic Teenage Warhead, Karan Soni as Dopender, who is still amazing, and I especially love how he just wants to become a hitman throughout. One other character that I quickly want to mention is Yukio, played by Shioli Kutsuna. I apologize if I got your name wrong just then, who isn't in the movie that long, but I just love the quick interactions she has with Deadpool. It's really sweet.
Hi, Wade. Hi, Wade. Hi, Wade.
Hi, Yukio.
Please don't.
Hi, Yukio.
Hi, Wade. Bye, Wade.
Bye, Yukio.
Bye, Wade.
Bye, Yukio.
When this movie was released for home viewing, they included a super duper cut, and that was the version me and my girlfriend watched. And I wanted to look up the differences between the super duper cut and the theatrical version, and the differences were just changing a couple jokes in some scenes. It's not really anything to write home about. When researching this, I completely forgot they even released Once Upon a Deadpool, which essentially was a PG-13 version of the movie where it is told as a bedtime story by Deadpool himself. It was described as a version that was creative and only something Deadpool can do, and even though this ended up getting the PG-13 rating it wanted to in America, it wasn't enough for the British Board of Film Classification to lower its rating, so for us Brits here, it stayed as a 15 rated movie. Now, after watching this, I did have a pretty good initial reaction to it, but I did struggle to find the words of what exactly to say in this video, and that's why it's very late out compared to the last one I made. I do apologize. I think this is overall a pretty decent, entertaining movie with some really good action sequences, though I would say, after thinking about it for a while, for me, this movie is teetering on that line of losing its impact on multiple viewings, and I certainly think that with Thor Ragnarok. And I know it's probably harder to make comedies that have a lasting impact, and on subsequent viewings, it still holds the same entertainment value as when you watched it for the first time. An example of comedies that I can watch over and over again are Hot Fuzz, Shaun of the Dead, The Life of Brian, and The Holy Grail. If I was to host a movie night with a bunch of my friends, I'd probably recommend watching the first Deadpool movie over this one. So the budget of this movie was $110 million, and at the box office worldwide, this grossed just under $786 million. A huge return for this movie. So I guess let's just see where Dark Phoenix takes us. And like with every other opinion video, let's give the trailer a look to see if it's any good.
Peter.
Any power you want to tell us about?
I don't have one. I just saw the ad.
You're in.
yeah, that was a pretty good trailer, and I feel as though I should give this movie another watch because I feel as though I was a little bit too negative in this. It wasn't a horrible movie. It was really good. It was really entertaining. It's just maybe I was comparing it too much for the first. And last thing I want to quickly mention about this movie, since we just watched the trailer, which is the marketing, and it was absolutely astounding, just like the first movie. They had parodies to Rob Ross, the Freedom of Want painting, making an apology to David Beckham for what Deadpool said in the first movie. One of the trailers having unfinished visual effects on Cable's arm, taking a dig obviously at Henry Cavill's mustache with Justice League, and Celine Dion making a song for this movie. It's absolutely incredible, and let's be honest, that song is pretty banging. And that's about it. Thank you everybody so much for watching this video. If you liked it, leave a like, subscribe, ding the notification bell, share around with your friends and family. Comment down below what you thought of the movie. Do you actually prefer this from the first one? Comment also down below what I could do better for next time. I really encourage constructive feedback. And if you want to see more of me, I'm on twitch.tv/Rizikins. There I'm going through Bloodborne, nearly completed that. And I also play games with my girlfriend Jem and my good friend Sir Razzie. Going through Baldur's Gate 3 with my girlfriend, and we might also be playing Chained Together sometime soon, so excited to be playing that and losing our minds together. But hope to see you there. Thank you everybody so much again, and take care.